And the problem today, and the reason why society is like it is because men are being feminized and women are becoming masculine. And everybody knows it's dangerous to enter and exit. You cannot say, I was born this way. I don't care what scientists say. You can be converted. You were not born that way. Let me pray with you. Let me tell you, don't you be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed. Well, I don't know what I am. Tell it, take your clothes down, and I'll show you who you are.
Welcome back to Truth Talks.
Well.
That clip right there did not age well.
No.
Last night we had a topic that got everybody fired up during our live broadcast. We saw all the comments, and whether you agree with us or not, we're glad we have this platform to discuss controversial subjects like this. And we're asking, can you pray away the gate? Bree, help me reintroduce our guest.
Yes, you guys, joining us again is Reverend Dr. Josh Noblett. He's an ordained pastor in the United Methodist Faith, and Bishop Troy Sanders, the founder and senior pastor of Rehoboth Fellowship of Atlanta United Church of Christ. Hey guys, welcome back.
Hello.
Thank you
Hey,
for staying and
Josh.
joining us again.
Okay, so
Hey, Reverend.
let's get straight into it.
Bishop
Dr.
Sanders.
Noblett and Bishop Sanders, you are both proud voices in the LGBT community. Our entire panel is made up of heterosexuals. These are usually people commenting and making decisions for your community. Do you think that straight people should be allowed to have an opinion on homosexuality as it relates to your faith?
I invite folks to have their own opinions about whatever they want to have. It's just, I want you to engage in a respectful way when it comes to me and those that I love in my community.
And so when you say respectful, give me an example of something that would be disrespectful.
Well, what that clip that we just saw was disrespectful in my view. I mean, he doesn't even know what he's talking about. What we said, I think, in yesterday's segment was, you know, folks didn't even bother to ask about the daily lived experience of the folks that they are condemning. And clearly, he doesn't know any, or at least he's not demonstrating that he knows, you know, like your moms, for example. Like, he doesn't know them. And if he did, he wouldn't be talking like that.
Absolutely.
You know?
What do you think?
And you, Bishop Sanders?
So I think that we don't have to have the same mind to mind the same things, and that there should be a space where we all can have opinions and have differences and have non-punitive dialogue. I am all for that. I certainly don't have a problem with other people having alternative dialogues or opinions. My challenge is that when you want me to conform to your opinion and you consider yourself to be the voice of truth, I don't buy into that kind of dogma.
For folks who are going to have an opinion or be contributing to any policy, anything that has to do with that community, needs to have something I like to talk about, culture competence. You need to be competent on the culture that you're going to have an opinion on, even if that opinion is not going to turn into policy. You got to remember that there's people in the room that could be heterosexual, that has family that are gay, that has best friends that are gay, and so your opinion also impacts me because those are people that I happen to love. So get some culture competence before you have an opinion. Now, Bree, I know you have two gay mamas, right? So we wanted to hear from your perspective on how religion has influenced your upbringing in a diverse household.
Like I said last night, Dr. B, my mothers took me to church. One of my mothers was the Sunday school teacher. She taught me along with other children in the church. Yeah, during Sunday school, she taught me my first hymn. I was part of all the plays. She made sure we knew everything about God and just the Bible. So it was very hypocritical to me when the church would condemn this lifestyle, but then I also realized like how hurtful it was to me to witness them not be able to live as their true selves because they were trying to protect not only themselves but me as a young child from the judgment of others. Again, I also remember pastors asking for financial help from them, and then that also showed me, oh, money is the real motive here. To see them have to hide who they were confused me. Like, why do you have to pretend to be this to worship God? Is that saying that God made a mistake when he made you? And if God is, like you said, we're made in the image of God. And if God is perfect and if God is whole, then what does that say about me if I'm that type of person? And then we even know now through science that there are gay animals. There are gay insects. If the church says that's wrong, how do y'all combat that with scripture or even, you know, your own beliefs?
Well, one of the things that we kind of got started on in yesterday's segment that we didn't get a chance to finish is this word infallible. And it reminds me of just this big word that we use in seminary called hermeneutics, which is how we interpret the text. And I think that we lose a lot of the meaning of the text when we don't take into consideration who wrote it, who was the audience they were writing it to, what was going on politically, economically, and socially at the time that that document was written. Mm-hmm. And when we dive a little deeper into that, it helps fill out the text a bit more. And we know that they didn't know anything about homosexuality as we know it today, at that time. And so we have to speculate a bit about what it is that they were writing. And so, again, that's what I was saying yesterday, is that love is the point, because that's what we hear out of the mouth of Jesus, is that the greatest commandment is love of self, God, and neighbor. And so that to me, offers the framework by which we can interpret all the rest of the text. So it still is infallible if we view it through the lens of love. Yeah. At least in my view.
Do you agree with that, Doc?
I think love is love. The only question that came to mind, and I asked this because I've asked myself this from having, again, gay cousins that are males, and my two best friends are gay. And one's 60, so there's no conversion. She's a lesbian. She's been like that her whole life. We've been best friends for 26 years. Why is it that only a male and a female are who is organically, naturally able to procreate?
I hear the question. I certainly do. The premise for me, though, is that all heterosexual people don't procreate.
I was about to say
I didn't say they don't. I said they can. There's a difference in that.
All heterosexual women can't procreate, and all heterosexual men can't procreate. And is procreation the litmus test for love? That's the question. No. For me, it is not, because there are people who choose not to have children.
Totally.
That does not diminish the fact that they're in love.
And there are women who are born who are not able, who are in heterosexual relationships that are not able to procreate. So that doesn't mean that
men too.
There's men and women who naturally cannot procreate. I'm talking about two men, two women who can give birth, who can procreate, but they're not, and they can't because they're in the same sex. I guess what I'm saying is, because I see their love, I'm almost thinking, well, damn, like, why can't they? Does that make sense? Because I know when I'm in love with, say, my man, I've been engaged, I think of the day that I can birth something that's mixed with his love and my love. Not that that's what love equates for everybody, but for me, I'm going, I love this man so much that I want to be able to create something that's him and me.
I am a mixture of both of my mothers. I am so much, and I tell people all the time, people are like, you're so well-rounded.
But we're talking about DNA-wise.
I am.
DNA-wise.
To my core.
No,
it doesn't matter about who I am, like what I look like. I am a mixture of two women who decided we love each other so much. We want to join together, go through science to have this child. They raised me and
out of love.
And committed to that to this day. I have my I call her my nana, because back then I couldn't admit to her being my other mom. I have my nana's, her work ethic. I have her financial stability. I have her knowing how to say, like, there are certain qualities. I'm so much more nurturing.
No, I get the learned behavior. No, I get the learned behavior. Then I have the hustle from my biological But that's
mom.
the love. That's the learned behavior. And I see that in you, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, the love makes me well-rounded.
But I'm talking about the biological DNA genetically of two people, baby. I see that they made you. The love is what got you so amazing. Mm-hmm. The DNA made you beautiful, but the love got you amazing. I'm saying DNA-wise, and it's only because coming from a very, very positive perspective of saying, I see my best friend and her wife be so in love, right? I would want them to be able to evolve into something, because they never equated to love.
But it sounds like God has then uniquely positioned LGBTQI people then to express love for people who were not born in that context. It sounds like we've been given, maybe the work of procreating according to DNA is the job, the task of heterosexual people, and maybe the work of LGBTQI people is to raise children who are in homes where parents don't love them, to birth children other ways. I was raised by a black woman in the South who did not push me out her womb, but I am certainly her child.
Come on.
And no one could ever say anything different.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the assignment of different people are in different ways.
Yeah, and I love that, totally.
So coming up next, we're going to discuss what folks often refer to as the gay agenda. That's up next on Truth Talks. And we're back on Truth Talks. We often hear hetero people, which is now cisgender, saying they feel like the gay agenda is being forced on everybody because there's a new term or a phrase defining sexuality and gender so frequently. Look at this graphic. Those are all the different flags of all the different
that represent LGBTQ plus.
Identification
and
of gay
actually,
pride.
they're all the flags that represent that gay pride, like you said.
Yeah.
Right?
I also often hear the fight for gay rights has become bigger than the black agenda, especially when it comes to Barack Obama. When he was in office, he's taken up different issues like the unisex bathroom law in NC. Have the scales actually been tipped, Bishop Sanders? You being an African-American male, has it been more of a pro-black thing or a pro-gay agenda thing in America in the last 8 years, in your opinion?
So in my opinion, I think we've allowed the conservative Christian base to create wedge issues to separate our communities. LGBTQI issues is one of those issues. Personally, I think that if we elevate the conversation, ain't none of us free until all of us free.
Hello.
The reality is that if they come for black folk today, they're gonna come for gay folk tomorrow, and they'll come for other people another day. We all are gonna have to stand together. So I think that the supposed gay agenda needs to be a human rights agenda. I think that's the issue.
I love that. No, I totally agree. And I always say that anybody who's black and gay is at a duality of inequality, a duality of a lack of equity, a duality of marginalization, and a duality of racism and discrimination.
And if
I
you're a
think it's
lesbian,
very
black, and
challenging.
gay, then you're
Come on.
3 times removed.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I think that people classify the gay agenda as exposure or education about people that are different than you. So they're like, oh, we don't want to teach people about these different letter people because then it's exposing and we're pushing it and forcing it on people. But I'm like, we have to educate people so that we can be more understanding and loving of people who are not like us.
And Bree, when you said the letter people, it's interesting because many of my clients who are gay, they don't like the letters because the letters come with labels.
Absolutely.
And those labels separate them from what a bishop just said, the human rights of things.
Absolutely.
And it's like, at what point do these people just become a human?
Josh, so who's coming up with the terms, like the LGBTQ, like who's coming up with those and how are you all informed on what it is?
Well, one of the things, I really love that graphic of all those flags just a moment ago.
Can we put it up again?
Because that to me, that in addition to educating others, it's also about people finding their own voice and seeing themselves reflected back in a community. And I think that is so important, and it is constantly evolving. The way that when I first came out of the closet back in the early 2000s, it was LGBT.
Right.
You know, then there was the Q, and then there was the I, and then there was the A, and then there's been a lot of other things. And I say the more the merrier because I want folks to have a voice, and I want folks to feel empowered to live their life in a way that is fulfilling and quality.
Can you say what all the letters mean for somebody who's at home?
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, queer,
Queer, questioning.
intersex, asexual.
And they're terms that are not even
Queer.
on
What
there.
is question?
Now, Q is it? There was a difference
There's
between
two
your
different
Q and your
Qs?
Q.
Queer and questioning.
That's
Yeah.
what
They're
the
the
same
same
stands
thing.
for.
So it's Q.
Queer and questioning.
One
So-
Q stands for two things.
So yeah, so it can be queer and or questioning. Queer people have identified as queer in a number of ways, not just according to whether they are sleep with men, or women who sleep with women. Just someone who doesn't fit in a certain context or standard will often
So,
identify as queer.
can you tell us how queer is different than gay?
And a lot of folks also interpret these terms within our community, interpret them differently as well.
Okay.
The way that I would interpret it and the way I've heard it interpreted is that queer is sort of a catch-all. Like somebody might identify as queer and might be any one of those letters, but it's easier to say queer than it is to say L, blah, blah, blah,
So
all
they,
those letters.
if I'm a woman, can I be queer or does it have to be a man?
No, you can be
Okay,
queer.
so if I'm a woman and I'm queer, that means that I can sleep with Bree, Willie, Ryan, any of y'all up here? No, I'm asking so I know. So as a queer woman, I can sleep with the gay guy. I can sleep with the straight guy. I can sleep with the gay woman. I can sleep with the
Because
trans.
you could
Can I
also
sleep
be
with? Can I sleep with the
questioning
transgender
your
as well?
Sexuality as well. You're trying things out to figure it out, or you just don't feel like you fit in. I had a friend.
Wait,
who
so I can sleep with the transgender as well?
Yes.
So Audre Lorde said, if I don't define myself for myself, I'll be swallowed up in other people's images of me.
So why the labels though? Why all the labels?
Because it's an attempt to identify and to express. I'm a black gay man.
Okay.
And as a black gay man, we struggled with being called gay. So many black gay men call them, myself included, same gender loving, because there's a lot of cultural and a lot of social context to
And
being
stigma.
a gay and stigma to being a gay man versus a same gender loving man. So I think everybody has a chance. It's the same idea as if we're black or if we're African American.
Right.
Everybody gets a chance to identify themselves for themselves and name that.
It was something we talked about on the previous show. that you talked about. You said the reason that the black church was started was because of the way that they were treated, and you talked about sitting in the back in the white church, in the balcony. Is that why there are two different gay weekends? There's a black gay weekend, and then there's a white gay weekend.
Question.
So can y'all answer that?
I wouldn't call it white gay pride. I mean, I would call it sort of October pride. In Atlanta, we have our pride in October. June is also Pride Month. You can speak more to black gay pride.
It's a branch from the same tree, right? I think that the whole gay pride ceremony started out of the Stonewall Rebellion in a way to honor that, and that's a certain time frame, right? What we found as African Americans, some African Americans found, is that our expression of being black and gay was not quite equitable as the expressions of being white and gay. And so just like there were historically black colleges and historically black sororities and fraternities, there had to that same concept extended itself to the gay community, right? And so we wanted to create spaces where we not only celebrated being gay, but being black and gay.
I lost both my grandparents to Alzheimer's, right? And so I got on this big soapbox and I was going to go out and I was going to raise money for the Alzheimer's Association. I did golf tournaments, I did all these things. And then when I got inside the Alzheimer's Association, I felt it was a totally different Alzheimer's Association for the black people than it was for the white people. And I was crushed by that. So my question is it a disconnect between the two organizations?
I happen to be friends with those that started the first Black Gay Pride in Atlanta. And one of the challenges was economics. Large sponsors, I won't call their names because we're on the broadcast, but large companies would get behind main pride and put dollars, major dollars, behind a gay pride, but black gay pride struggled financially because there is a divide. So there were resources that were available to the larger pride celebration and committees that were not necessarily made available to black pride. So there is some discrepancies between the two.
I also had a gay uncle who was like a father figure to me, and he was very masculine. And I think that he struggled with people calling him gay, even though he was a little bit more out than my mom then. He struggled with that because people often meant that it made him less of a man. And my grandmother would tell you he was probably more of a man than her other sons, than that have ever been for her, because of how he stood up and was there for the family. So I think, like you said, especially in the black community, we struggle with that gay label because people will try to make it emasculate you as a man.
So femininity, right? So two lesbian women will be eroticized by heteronormative men, but two gay men will be demasculated, right? And then we have to also name, though, is that I'm also feminine, masculine and feminine, and I get to name and own both of those energies. Twin-spirited, right? And so we have to do some work around why do we demonize femininity in men.
But I love that.
I call it tutus and Timberlands.
And embrace all of it.
Tutus and Timberlands. Some days I want to wear tutu, and some days I want to wear Timberlands.
And I call them embrace the whole man.
Can I ask him this, because I really got a really big question. So can you tell me the difference between gay and same gender loving male? Can y'all explain that again?
It's referring to the same category of people, but there's a lot of history behind, negative history in some places behind the term gay, right?
So like the N-word. So you
absolutely. So we reclaim or use another word to separate ourselves from the trauma that might have been associated with that particular term.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do want to say this. It was last year, one of my dear friends, and I've known them for years. I call her my sister. I'm adopted. So when you adopted, you got a lot of sisters. And I walked in the house and I seen 3 boys on the picture. And I was wondering, like, okay, so she had where's Taylor? And Taylor came back from college, and Taylor now is a boy. It's always different when it hits you in your own household. And that's when my heart became extremely compassionate, because I realized, like, this was something that she could not shake. And this was something that I couldn't pray away. And it took her a little while to start to come to the barbecues and all that. But I picked her up last time I was in St. Louis. I'm like, hey, we riding. You and her. She was like, Dave. I was like, God, it's gonna take me a minute, boo. But and just loved on everybody. And man, I think there has to be a voice for everybody.
when you are asking out of genuine curiosity, most people in this community are happy to answer your questions. I have always been like that myself, but when you come attacking somebody or telling them or chastising them or demonizing them and telling them they going to hell, then of course I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. How do I ask it in a way that's going to become the most respectful, right? But if I'm asking, let's just say, you know, Willie and Ryan a question about just them and a woman, I don't feel like I have to do that screening. It's because there's a keen sensitivity in me, and I think most people who are asking y'all questions who really just want to know, so we can know how to love on you better, how we can know how to support you, we can know how to be sensitive to the words, and how do we ask it right, and how do we be around you and support you and provide resources. Does that make sense? So those questions, like what I'm asking, are a lot of people want to ask them, but they feel like, how do I ask it without looking homophobic?
They should, and that's called emotional intelligence. I feel like Ryan would be maybe sensitive about asking me something about something feminine-wise, so you should be a little bit sensitive.
So up next, Dr. B has been talked about more than anybody on this panel. Accused of been all kinds of things. She been in the closet, out of the closet, in the trunk, out the trunk, all these things. So we'll hear all about it when we come back on True Talk. She's been everywhere.
Y'all ain't right.
And we're back on True Talks. Our guests are two outspoken members of the clergy, but they also represent the LGBTQ community. We're talking about the intersectionality of religion and the LGBT community. And of course, Dr. Bryant, the pink elephant in the room.
Listen, y'all, I have often been accused of being a queer, a lesbian, and having a fine woman hiding in the closet. But I'm also a strong Christian, and I know my Bible well, okay? But as a heterosexual woman, straight woman, how can I answer that question, y'all, and be strong in my opinion without being accused of being homophobic? Seriously, like how
talk to me a little bit about that.
How can I answer that
like
question?
her who's being accused, and she's like, no, I don't, without having to say, well, you know, no disrespect to anybody.
But I'm not.
Like, how does she not be homophobic when she has a strong
When I answer that
opinion of who she
question.
is?
Well, I mean, I don't interpret that as homophobic. I just interpret that as you speaking your truth, you know, and I don't hear you condemning anybody else. You're just speaking for yourself in terms of naming who you are, where you fall in, you know, on the sexuality spectrum. That's what I hear. I mean, I mean, if somebody takes offense to that, I'm not sure what's going on in their life that they would sort of, you know, impose that narrative into what you're saying.
Yeah, but it happens a lot. So I have not answered that question or even approached it, addressed it. Thank you, addressed it at all, because of that, right? So it's like, how do I say, heck no, I ain't gay. I'm straight without it sounding like, hell no, I'm not gay, right? But it's like, I don't have a problem with anyone's sexual preference. Okay, but I also know that I have the right to my preference, and my preference happens to be heterosexual. Yeah. But I also know that I don't have to run around saying, hi, I'm Dr. Bryant, a straight woman, and identify with a letter or identify with my choice or my sexual preference. And I know that there's a group of people like y'all who do. And even me saying like y'all, I don't like the separation because I look at y'all as human beings. I don't look at you as over there and I'm over here. I look at it as we are just humans that happen to come together, and whatever walks in the room, we know if it's for you or for me, and it's very clear, right?
So what would you deem disrespectful? So if somebody is online and they're saying, you know, you're gay and you're this, that, and other, and they defend themselves to say, hey, you know, it just sometimes feels like it's very hypersensitive, and it's a thin line between, you know, I don't know what it's going to look like coming into this year, but there was a cancel culture that if you said anything wrong, that was you almost had to do like back in the day how white people had to do with black people. Like, now listen, I don't want black because I got a black cousin or a black friend. You had to always say, well, you know, I got a cousin who, and I love him. And so how do you make sure that you know, you guys aren't offended when someone has a strong
100%.
opinion on who they are?
So I think for me, I have no problem if someone comes in and asks me, are you a straight man? I say, no, I'm not.
Right.
Point blank, period. And I think that any baggage that I carry around my own identity will be revealed if someone asks me and I'm not comfortable. But as long as I'm comfortable, I don't consider that to be homophobic. If someone, so people ask, you know, well, if I saw an attractive man and he identified as straight, that doesn't offend me because that's how he identifies.
Yeah.
I think we all have an opportunity to name ourselves for ourselves. So
And I
I don't see it.
respectfully, you can always say, I have no obligation to share what's going on in my pants besides with somebody who's in my pants.
Yeah,
You get what I'm
and
saying?
that's how I take it. But
you know,
Willie's right.
But I want to ask
yeah.
you this because I think we talk about the cancel culture, and for a lot of people, you almost feel like you walking on eggshells when it comes to talking about anything like that. Because even off the camera, before I was like, man, I don't want, because we want to go viral, but I'm not going to do anything because I don't freaking know. You know what I'm saying? I don't damn know. So I'm asking you these questions, but when you see somebody who is, and we talk about this a lot tonight, about people making money, when you see somebody like a Dave Chappelle who continues to do special after special after special where he is talking about all types of anti-gay stuff.
Yep.
How does that affect the agenda? Because it can become, and it has become, dangerous for some people.
I think that what we believe and how we voice what we believe has consequences. And I think someone said it earlier, when love is at the forefront, right, you have to lay our weapons down. And I think that's across the board, whoever it is. If we're having conversations that's non-punitive, I think it creates a space for people to be able to be more vulnerable.
Yeah. So, but Willie made a good point, because I do lead with the truth, which is my best friends are gay of 27 years. Yeah. She's my travel assistant. She looks gay. She travels with me everywhere. And, you know, even then, people see her.
But you got attacked on that,
right,
though.
I get attacked online. However, people see this woman with me on every social media, on my speaking tour, everywhere. She's not only my best friend, she's my assistant. So they see her everywhere. She dresses like a tomboy. It's clear that she's a lesbian. And it still feels uncomfortable at times for me to be able to say, I'm not freaking gay, right? And this is the point, this is what makes it even wilder. It makes me guilty by association sometimes with her. I don't care, but there's been times where she's told me, Shy, do you want me to dress different to your event so I don't think you're gay? And in that moment, years ago, I remember being like, yo, like what? Like it totally, I'm getting emotional now about it, but it totally crushed me and broke my heart, because I'm like, do I want you to switch up your identity for these motherfucking people? Absolutely not. These people could leave my show before you dress different. Dress how you dress, be how you are, because she felt like she would take one for me and really sacrifice her identity. That's wild to me. It's wild.
I still, I mean, talking about the walking on eggshells, I still would like to say, for a person who is always kind of trying to tip to the, I mean, even on my show, sometimes the topics come up and people come in, they say different things. And we always have this old saying, it's like, you know, let the listener tell it, right?
Yeah,
because
that's
if
what
the
we do on
listener
radio.
tells it, then you cannot
safe.
get blamed for it. But when you're talking about sometimes a misunderstanding, how would you say is a basic way for us to address, to be able to talk about these issues? Somebody called in, they talked about cisgender and they didn't say it right, and these people just came, they was going crazy, and I was like, I don't even understand. So what would be your advice for somebody who may not have the knowledge to speak intelligently on this while still being able to have a conversation, if that makes sense?
That all sounds like trauma response to me. You know, as a therapist and somebody who works with folks working through a lot of these things, and we talk about triggers a lot in my counseling practice, and I'm sure you hear that a lot with your clients as well. Things like tone of voice, choice of words, facial expressions, gestures, things like that can be triggering, because what we do is we're always interpreting everything around us through the lens of our own lived experience. And so when I hear that tone, my mind is going to reach back into the archives of my own lived experience to where I've heard that tone before, and it sounded like a condemnation back then, and so I'm hearing you say it now, and so it's a trauma response to what's happening. And we are living in traumatic times. You don't need me to tell you that right now. And so what I would say to folks that might jump to conclusions about something is, do we have enough information to really make an appraisal of what's being said right here? One question I would have for you is, you know, it sounds like you get quite a bit of feedback about your sexuality or speculation and whatnot, and you have asked and answered it. Why do you feel the need to continue to address it?
Well, I've only addressed it now. This is the first time I've ever addressed it. I mean, it goes viral. They have huge bloggers. I don't want to say names. The biggest bloggers have videos just about me and this girlfriend that I don't have, that she says I have. That I'm a lesbian, and it doesn't bother me, because my team asked me, do you want us to have her take it down? I said, nope, leave it. Leave it. Absolutely not. Leave it. And so it doesn't bother me, because, you know, I don't have a problem with any of the identity, because I know who I am. I'm a single, you know, straight woman who's seeking marriage. And so for me, I also am the voice for, one, the Black community, and I'm a voice for women, right? And so I don't have just straight women. I have gay women, queer women, lesbian, all kinds of different women that follow me. My voice is about them having the best quality of life, having great mental health, having a human right to be who they are. It's not about bringing light to these labels and these letters and these titles.
Right.
And that's what I focus on. And so when they come and attack me, I always say, if I have to be attacked for someone to get the lesson or the blessing, I'm built for this. I don't care. I'm okay with that. But it is reverse discrimination. Mm-hmm. It's reverse discrimination. I'm discriminated against because I'm guilty by association. Mm-hmm. And then I'm discriminated against because I'm a straight woman who is labeled gay, who is not gay. Right?
I think it's education. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No. I heard the statement. I'm just wondering what that guilty by association.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, does that mean I'm guilty, that the person that is gay is guilty, or is it a notion of I'm being grouped into a community that I'm not a part of?
No, it's exactly that. There's a community of people who have their own identity crisis going on. They're projecting that onto me and saying that I am guilty of being a lesbian because some of the folks in my environment who are the closest to me happen to be lesbian. So that's me being guilty, not of a crime, right, to us, but maybe a crime to them. Because anyone who has no issue with someone loving who they love is not going to have an issue with me, Dr. Bryant, being gay if I was. It doesn't matter what I am, first of all. If I was sleeping with a woman and telling y'all I'm straight, that's still none of your business. You're not privy to what I do.
Right.
Yeah. And no is a complete sentence.
And then the thing
Are
is
you
this,
gay?
though, Bishop.
No.
Yeah.
But
Period.
Bishop, I'm in denial, though.
That.
I'm
Yeah.
in denial. The thing is that I'm in denial about it and that I bash men because I am
Because
a
you're a
lesbian.
closet
And so
lesbian.
I'm a closet lesbian. And so when I come out, I'm bashing men.
Yeah.
That's why.
I think you
question.
speaking of it is educational, though, because also me growing up and people assuming that I would be gay because I was raised in this
But
household.
actually-
You're exposed to it. You must be gay. It's gonna happen eventually.
Right.
People literally
You gonna
told me
convert.
that I was gonna grow into gay, and I never did. So I'm proudly educate people that, hey, yes, I come from this household, but yes, I am heterosexual, because I think it's a chance for people to expand their own mindset and realize, oh, you can be exposed to it and be around it as a
Right.
child and not be inquisitive and want to veer into that lifestyle. Oh, this beautiful woman can have these strong opinions and have friends that are in this and be exposed
And
to
go
it.
to the gay
And
club
go
because
to the
I'm going to
club
support
and
my
not
best friends
be
at the
gay.
gay club
I
to
think
find
it's
her
a
a
way
woman.
to
And the gay
educate
club is awesome,
people.
by the way.
So coming up next, we're going to get final thoughts and talk allies versus Donald Trump when we come back. You're watching True Talks. And welcome back to True Talks. Let's talk about allies. Dr. B, let's go.
Reverend Dr. Josh and Bishop Sanders, right? What do you say to the heterosexual people who are your allies and support you? However, they don't believe that homosexuality belongs and should be accepted in your church or in your place of worship?
Great question. I think, first of all, we have to define the term ally, right? Because someone, it's the difference between being celebrated and being tolerated. And I choose not to just be tolerated, I choose to be celebrated. I don't have a notion that everybody will believe like I believe. So I'm not expecting people who are tolerant of me to have the same belief practices. But I do have the expectation that an ally, by the sense of the term, that if I'm in the fight, you're going to fight with me.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to fight with me, you're going to have to believe that I am equal to you, and you're going to have to believe that I am not marred or sinful.
But I have a question. What if an ally does feel you're equal to them and they do fight the fight that is for whatever rights you have, but because they have a different lifestyle, right, that those rights don't apply to them? However, they're still going to fight that fight with you. They just don't believe in what you believe. And I ask that because I'm president of NAACP in Los Angeles, so I fight for human rights. We have a lot of white allies. My vice president is white. And so there's a lot of things that he and our white allies fight for that they don't understand what the hell it is. Yeah. But they support us and they support the black community. And they also have different beliefs than us. but they're fighting our fight. That's what makes an ally. I don't need them to be directly in alignment with everything I believe. What I do need is for them to align with the mission of what the goal is.
So for me, the question would be, the ally then gets to pick what fight they show up for?
No, the ally
Because
is
the
supporting all your fights. They just may have a difference in opinion about what you believe in.
Well, how I am honored in the house of worship is a fight.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking for the ally to stand in that fight
But what
with
if
me,
they're
just like they
fighting
would
that
stand.
fight with you? They're just saying behind that fight, hey, Bishop, you know, I believe differently, but I got your back. I'm going to fight it. I just believe it differently. I understand it differently, but I'm fighting that fight with you. I'm going to fight the fight of worship.
So they agree to disagree.
No, what I've heard religiously, they've taken sin off of the table as homosexuality not being sin. So for the larger overarching Christian, they just like, hey, I respect you, I honor you, I love you. However, I believe a lot of Christians are just praying like, okay, cool. You know, God's gonna figure that thing out. Until he does, I'll just love you through. So when it comes to the house of worship, the overarching Christian thing, which they will not say because it's a hypersensitive community now, it's like, hey man, the truth is, when grandmama come in, she gonna love you and your girlfriend. But when she come to that prayer section, she gonna be like, we just gonna pray for them just a little bit.
That's not
because
an
they have an
ally.
understanding.
And
They
so
just have an
That's
understanding.
double-minded. That's double-sided. You cannot say that you support me, that you want me to, you know, read the Bible, that you want me to have a relationship with the Lord, but then behind closed doors, you praying and hoping that I one day turn my life over. That's not an ally. You are ultimately against me. You're pretending.
One of the things that a phrase that we have in the Methodist Church is called the process towards perfection. That we are all in process. We saw this with Barack Obama when he was the president around same-sex marriage. That he was not there, and then he evolved in his position and embraced it, and led to the rights that we have today. I think we are all in process. Even myself, in understanding about issues around race and gender, hearts get changed through shared values and shared experiences, not through a scripture pissing contest or through some kind of scientific, you know, beating somebody over the head with scientific fact or anything like that. It's through, you know, the shared, you know, just shared experiences together.
And I think the true essence of respect and love is saying that, like my best friend, she can be gay. I don't choose that. It doesn't mean I'm praying against her, Bree. It just means that I'm not in agreement with that for me. It doesn't mean I don't support her rights. Doesn't mean I don't have her back.
For me.
So
I'm
but I am my best
and
friend's
I'm an ally.
number one ally.
I do not believe that LGBTQI people are sinful, but it seems to me that there's a different standard, right? We don't ask a drunkard or another type of person who we note as sinful, how do I engage you when I disagree with you? Either I'm in it with you or I'm not in it with you. Why is there a different set of rules in the house of worship for LGBTQI people?
Respectfully, I'll be honest with you. Because of the hypersensitivity and the cancel culture towards the culture of LGBTQ plus community, it just gets a little tough. If my uncle drunk, I'm just like, boy, don't you bring your ass back over here drunk. Grandmama in there. But if I come in there and say, hey, you know, hey, don't you come in here like this, that, and the other. Oh my God, now it's cancel culture. Don't let it mess around and get on tape. And so it just becomes a little hypersensitive. So here's the thing. I do understand everybody has their choices, they have their rights, and we understand it, and we are to love everybody. I think the bigger thing with conversations like this that you can only get here on Truth Talks, where we really get down into the minutia of the community, if you don't have conversations like this, then you don't actually know. Like a lot of people who are bashing the LGBTQ community just won't sit down and have an open mind and understand some of the things that they've gone through. So to be honest, I want to thank you both for being so open and honest on this show about religion and the LGBTQ community. I have one last question. President-elect Donald Trump has been very hard lines and perspective about gay marriage and the LGBTQ community. What do you envision is coming up from him on day one, as he's already said that there's only two genders, female and male? What are your thoughts? Starting with you, Josh, and then I'll head to you, Bishop.
Well, again, my guess is that President-elect Trump doesn't really know any transgender folks or has never really interacted with any of those folks, because if he did, he would not be talking like that. And the rhetoric that he has encouraged and has given himself only brings down harm on those who are suffering the most and who are the most vulnerable. And I just think it's unnecessary, and it really causes a lot of harm.
Do you have a vision of what you think may happen Are there some conversations that you all are having now to say, okay, because for us as African American people, with DEI leaving and so many other things that had already been progressively moving forward, we realized that we got to have think tanks. We got to be smart. We can't be so loud about what we're doing. We're going to have to create some different things so we can make sure that our local communities are doing what they're supposed to do. Have you all been having think tanks or how we're going to have it?
100%. A number of my clients and a number of my personal friends who are part of the trans community have been coming up with a plan, packing a little emergency bag, identifying a list of names of places they could go, planning for the worst. And it is heartbreaking because it doesn't have to be like this. It does not have to be like this. The transgender population is such a small segment of the population, yet here we are focusing so much of the national dialogue on this. These folks just want to live their lives.
In peace.
In peace.
I'm under no delusion that I'm going to have a friend in Donald Trump in the White House.
Come on now.
I am clear about that, right? But I'm also clear that in 4 years, Donald Trump will be gone. This is not the first time I've been hated in America. I've been hated as a black man in America, but didn't know it when they wore white sheets and called themselves the KKK. What I'm hoping, what I'm envisioning is that the checks and balances in our government will hold him accountable when he comes for human rights issues. I'm hoping that the legislative branches of government and all of the other people that can stop the madness that he is looking to ensue will actually work. And yes, we are having think tanks in the LGBTQI community, but the truth is you're not going to put your battle plan out in Front Street so that somebody can shoot it down. So we're doing it, but we're being strategic about what we say and how we say it so that we can move in silence, similar to the way that he did to set himself up to get reelected.
Really quick before we go, since these two episodes were about church and the LGBTQ community, what do y'all say or how do you feel about people saying that the people and members of that community will not make it to heaven?
I don't have a hell to put anybody in myself.
Come on now.
Maybe there is a hell, I just don't think that anybody's actually there. Because if God is love, then I just don't see how those two things are compatible. That's just me.
The late Bishop Carlton Pearson helped us to debunk this whole misnomer of hell. I'm not afraid of going to hell. The redemptive work of Christ takes me out of the notion that I'll go to hell. I just believe that. So I'm not living to get to heaven. I'm living to be effective down here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and God said, if you make your bed in hell, there I am.
Now that's a whole nother theological concept. So then
Come on,
God would
baby.
be in hell.
What is the demographic of your church? Because again, you're trying to get younger people to come into the church. And I know, all the big ministers that I know, they say we have a time clock. It has 23 minutes on it. And by the time it gets to 2 minutes, if we don't wrap up our message, we have lost the congregation. I was like, for real? They was like, that's how it is now. No longer can you go to church and be in church 3-4 hours or whatever. So what is the demographic and how are y'all trying to encourage younger people who may have these questions about their sexuality, who want to be embraced and nurtured? How can you explain if that makes sense?
So I think the first thing is we have to name the church at large is in crisis. Ever since the pandemic, we have not come back to where we were before the pandemic. Nobody in church pretty much wants to be in church every week anymore. And I think we have to lean into that. That's the first thing. So I think we have to look at new and innovative ways to recreate worship spaces and models for worship. The demographics of my church, so we are in a decline just like every other church. And because we are a marginalized community, we're in even more of a decline because we're marginalized, right? But we have the beauty of worshiping. My mother and several others of my biological family members are members of our church. Okay. So while we're predominantly LGBTQI, we have a number of allies who are not, that don't identify as LGBTQI. Hey, you named yourself as such. So I want to lift that up, right? And so that's unique because most of our churches, we've had to make a decision whether we would worship with our biological parents or biological siblings or whether we would worship with communities that loved and accepted us.
Right.
So my community, we are actually blending that, right? And that's not unique. Those are the ways in which we're making things happen differently, but we still have to address the concern that the church is in a decline across the board, no matter what you believe.
Is that the same thing true for you, Josh?
The church that I served, it was, COVID definitely had a huge impact at St. Mark, but it was a predominantly white church with some racial diversity and skewed a little bit on the older side. I think part of the problem is that for a lot of, I'll just speak for mainstream Protestant denominations, it's not that people aren't thirsty for spiritual nourishment, it's just that what the churches have been serving is not really
It's not nourishment. Yeah, it's just not.
And so that's something that we really had to do some soul searching on. The other thing I think that was important at our church is that it was really important to have an openly gay clergy person up front in the pulpit, so that folks in the congregation could look up front and see themselves kind of reflected back and feel like they were part of what we were doing there together in terms of theology.
Yeah. So Bree, what's going on? What's in your heart and your head right now?
I'm so excited that we've had this conversation. It has even brought up fire inside of me of what I truly believe and how I feel like I can be more of an ally to this community. To me, an ally is someone, even if you don't necessarily engage in, which I will openly say I am heterosexual, have been my entire life, I feel the fire in me to fight this fight for this community and to know that, hey, they should have every single right that every single other human has, whether it's to worship Allah or worship Jesus or whoever they want to worship in whatever sense, they have that right to do so. Also, we've had so much dance around, and I feel like, wait, before I move on, the ally thing, I feel like you cannot openly say you are an ally for the money or the praise or the community support if you're not going to be behind closed doors fighting that fight and debunking these issues or these misconnotations about this community. I think that, to me, is true allyship. I wouldn't accept that from a white person saying they were an ally for the black community. Oh, I like black people, I love black people, but I'm not going to go out there and march for you. No, I'm going to just write a check and I'll be over here. Or I support you, sister, but I'm not going to get in there and fight with you. I don't believe you should, I don't want my kids to go to school with black kids, but I don't have a problem with the black kids. It's the same issue to me. And then when we think about how we have these conversations, y'all saw that everybody up here got to ask whatever they wanted to ask because we asked it in a respectful way. I have no doubt that no one in here will ever be canceled for anything that they said today. So I feel like we need to take away this, I can't say nothing, or I can't speak, or I'm not allowed to ask my questions because I'm going to be canceled, because that's just not true. As a human being, when you are dressing something up with love, or you're dressing something up with some type of hate or condemnation or condescending tone, you know what you're really meaning behind that. And it's just like, and I know the black community hate when I compare, but oppression is oppression. When a white person is coming to you asking you something out of love and pure curiosity, and when they're coming to you asking you something out of racism. So think about that when you get ready to question yourself or question these people on what their decisions are. I think this is an open space for education, and the more we talk about it, like you said, your daughters are so open to,
and my son,
and your son, they're so open to it. Why? And it's not a spectacle anymore. Why? Because these people have been allowed to live freely, and we see, they're human just like us. They eat, sleep, and shit just like everybody else.
You got a curse
sorry,
word,
Pastor.
There you go.
I'm sorry,
okay.
but you get what I'm saying. Their hearts pump blood just like everybody else's. So I feel like, just look at them, like Dr. B has said in so many other ways, they are human at the end of the day, and we all are, and we deserve respect at the end of the day.
Gentlemen, we appreciate your time and perspective on this issue. There's so much more we could discuss, especially as our youth are discovering their sexuality and faith at the same time, but that'll have to be the next episode. So coming up, some relationship advice for the later daters next in Hit It or Quit It. And welcome back. Now, we couldn't call the show True Talks if we weren't candid with our relationship advice. And it's so good that we had to keep our special guest here. So are y'all ready? You know what it's called.
Hit it or Quit It.
Yeah.
Now, to those of you who are new to the show, this is an opportunity to ask the questions that traditionally you're scared to ask. So check out what one of our anonymous truth defenders wrote. They said this: I like some dating advice. I'm a black woman, and I'm in my 50s, and I'm still single. Now, I've never been married, and I don't have any children. I like to find a man to settle down with, but I'm only attracted to and date black men. It seems they don't want to settle down, especially at my age. This is true for a lot of my girlfriends, too. We on the phone and just talking and talking, and we all got the same issue. So what's your advice, True Talk? Because I'm tired of being alone, what should I do with men who don't want to settle down?
I think you should pivot and quit it. Listen, girl, at your age, you have no time to play. I'm 42, and I have a list of things that I do and I don't do. I've made it very clear that if I'm dating you, you have to have no kids. If I'm dating you, I have to have full access. That's password and many other things because I'm a transparency woman, not an honesty woman. So at your age, you have to figure out within yourself, what is it that you want and what boundaries you got to set and what are non-negotiables. If they come with the non-negotiables, then it's a wrap. If they don't have it, then move forward.
Let's ask our pastors. What do you guys think?
My question to her would be, what hobbies do you have? What are you doing to get out in the community and socialize so that you can be seen in your natural habitat and see other men that you might be attracted to in their natural habitat interacting? And sometimes, you know, the list of I want this or I don't want that kind of fades away because you see somebody that you might not have initially been attracted to that becomes a really good match. So
I was gonna say that too, like when it comes to getting out the house, I was gonna say try doing different things that maybe some black men and other races of men are doing. You might find that you might be attracted to somebody of a different race. So get out the house, girl, date around.
Indeed.
My first thought is, have you ever considered dating women?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's the first one. Maybe that might open up some other opportunities for you.
You know, they talk about the fact that women and men have a hard time getting relationships as they get older. And what you've got to be able to do is to go first, right? When you go out to your point, and go out into these communities and you go out into these places that are a little bit off the beaten path. Maybe you go up to the person that you've been sitting next to at the coffee shop. That might be your mate, but all you do is go and you order your Starbucks every day. It's the same person sitting in the coffee shop, but you never go first because you're so set in your ways. So if you want to have a relationship, that soulmate might be sitting right next to you, but because you don't want to go first, you may not have that person in your life. So my thing, women should definitely go first. Yeah, women should go first. If you know that you're in your 50s, you got no kids, you got no relationship, what do you have to lose?
So she should go first and just act out of despair because she's of age. No.
No.
Act out of
Despair? Where you get that from?
No,
So
I don't
just
think
she
it's
has to
despair.
come in, she has to become the hunter. She has to say, let me not set myself up to be hunted, but because you said because she's of age and she has no kids, then she should just go first.
I said
Why?
that, because I think that if you want,
age?
no, because of anybody who's so used to being by themselves. You sit at home, oh my God, I'm just sitting there, I'm so damn lonely. Who is that, UPS? Is that you? Who out there? It's Prince Charming. Well, come on in, Prince Charming.
Yeah.
That's not how life is going to work. You're going to have to go out there and find somebody and be able to be vulnerable to. Sometimes it just don't damn work.
So Ryan,
sometimes it just don't happen.
So Dr. B, I want to redefine being found. That doesn't mean that she like, hey, you want to go on a date. It's just more so showing interest. What I've noticed is when women get a little older, they don't know how to bat them eyes like that no more because they've been through so much bull crap. So it's kind of like they have this stigma. They just look through a lens that's almost like, guys, they all the same. But if you see something you like, you don't have to, especially Christian women, the Bible says that he who findeth the wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor from the Lord. However, when you put yourself in a place to be found, bat your eyes a little bit. Come on and say, hey there, how you doing, young
right.
gentleman?
And shake his
Let me
hand
buy
at
this
home
latte.
for a little bit
I'll be
longer.
honest
I
with
got
you.
her latte and his
Older men are
latte.
divorced too. And it's a lot of men who are in their 50s who have been divorced and they actually they haven't been dating in a while too. So sometimes they don't know who's who. So give them a little bat and just give them an understanding of who they
I think
are.
women should set themselves up to be hunted. Ruth did this really good with Boaz. Then he had a party, and Naomi, who was mentoring her, said, baby, go to that party because he's having a party. Put on this cologne, put on something sexy. It says it's in the perfume. And she said, when you see him, let him know, I want you. And she went to him and said, I want you, slept at his feet all night. He said, if the man who's next in kin don't take you, then I'll give you everything you want. And that's exactly what he did.
So we got more. Follow us on all of our socials and right here on Fox Soul. We'll talk to you. Good night.
Good night.